Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Today is 9/11. Of course, we all know it's kind of an infamous day for American citizens. For that reason, along with a couple of other reasons, this is not going to be the longer call that I had planned. I'm going to have that call next week, but I do have some important information to share with you. I had a partner that I worked with for about 10 years when I still worked in the Baltimore, Washington metro area. He was originally from New York. And he came to me one day and said, Jim, our partnership's been great. We're good personal friends. We've done business together. But, I miss my family. I'm going back to New York. Well, he went back to New York, and he got a job in the South Tower, and he died on 9/11. So this is going to be a short call. What we have right now in Iraq is what looks to me to be a clear glide path to January of 2025. Now, in the past, I've talked about evaluations occurring in January, April, or September, largely because countries operate on either a calendar or fiscal year. And September, in my mind, was a possibility. But the monetary reform has not yet been completed. But everything going on right now tells me that the optimal date for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar is going to be January. There was an important meeting between Sudani and certain members of the government of Iraq and Barzani and members of the Kurdistan regional government to discuss the final implementation of the HCL. There was also, following that meeting, a private meeting between Sudani and Barzani, and basically what came out of that meeting is that they expect the complete implementation of the HCL by January 2025. Then there were meetings between the CBI, the IMF, Federal Reserve, and the U.S. Treasury. The primary focus of those meetings was the external global banking transactions between Iraq and other nations that were being conducted through the Federal Reserve. Well, the result of that meeting was that between now and January, they will be transitioning to have those transactions occur directly through the CBI and these other nations rather than through the Federal Reserve, with 100% of the transactions between the CBI and these other nations in January of 2025. Then we have the parallel market or the multiple currency system that's still operating in Iraq, although its dying days are upon us. And basically what has been going on is what's called a currency arbitrage. A currency arbitrage is where a currency, for whatever reason, is available at different rates in different markets, and people are able to make a profit through the purchase and sale of the same currency. Now, an arbitrage can be a very complicated transaction, and it can be counterintuitive. But the multiple currency system in Iraq and the disparity between the official rate and the street or market rate are going to be closing. Now, basically, I'm going to try to simplify what's going on. Remember that the use of the dollar for the exchange of goods and services in Iraq has been banned with the exception of travel and medical expenses. So there are individuals that can still utilize the dollar within the system. And there are individuals that are just investors. They don't use the dollar for the sale or purchase of goods and services, but they use it as a medium for transactions and trades at a profit. So basically what's happening is they've artificially reduced the price of the dinar. People are purchasing dollars as the price of the dinar falls. So what in essence is happening is the CBI is collecting the provisional 3-0 notes, at least the remaining ones, which helps to reduce the money supply, which of course helps increase the value of a currency, and it also reduces the amount of smuggling. So as they continue with this strategy, they will eventually be in a position where they can increase the exchange rate of the dinar and the release of the lower dinars. So whether it's the meetings between Soudani and Barzani, meetings between the CBI and these other international organizations, or whether it's their closing of the multiple currency parallel rate system in Iraq, everything seems to be on a glide path to January. And that seems to be the one thing that they all have in common. So that being the case, one could still argue that we will see a change in the exchange rate before January, but given all of this information, I don't see how they can go beyond January at this point, because everything they're doing cannot be undone, and the only way to resolve the situation that they're creating, they seem to be following Dr. Shabibi's plan. The only solution to the situation is the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar. And again, the drop-dead date for all of the things that they're doing is January of 2025. So we're unfortunately going to be waiting for a few more months, but we're in a very good place because Iraq is going to have nowhere to go in January of 2025. Now, I want to very briefly touch on the benefits of our trust package. And I've more recently been discussing the trust package from the standpoint of an American citizen, not just exclusively for those of us that have currencies. But we have an election coming up on November 7th. And it seems like every 4 years we say, gee, this is the most important election. And every 4 years there is a reason that one can make that argument. But I really think on January 7th, this country, by virtue of who they elect, is either going to take a hard and irreparable turn to the left or a hard and irreparable turn to a constitutional representative republic. And the way to protect yourself in the worst-case scenario is to utilize one thing that despite all of their efforts, the hard left in this country cannot get rid of. That's the Constitution, and more particularly, the Bill of Rights. And the most important protection for you as a citizen would be your Fourth Amendment right to privacy. And the best single instrument that exists to protect that privacy is the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts. It's what the politicians who are trying to undo the Constitution understand and use. It's what wealthy individuals use. It's what the whale investors use. And fortunately, even though most people don't understand it, it's a tool that the average American citizen can use to provide for themselves the same benefits that these other individuals have. But if you have currencies or you have an asset that you think is going to increase substantially in value, you need to get that asset out of title and into the trust before it revalues. And let me explain to you why. By establishing this family of trusts, you'll protect your privacy and your anonymity. That's because the trust is sealed and no one will have any knowledge of what's in that trust, your holdings, or your net worth. Second, by establishing this trust, you're going to avoid personal IRS scrutiny because the business transactions will be occurring within the trust. Now, how does that protect you? It protects you two ways. First, once again, it protects you as an individual citizen because, again, the transactions are occurring within the trust. But second, the trust protects you because the IRS avoids going after sophisticated trusts because they rightly assume that individuals that have established such trusts also have very good legal representation. And so they tend to go after the low-hanging fruit. Joe Lunchbox, the average American, is just working hard, and they're an easy target for the IRS. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends in situations where you're hesitant to give them the lump sum. And I've had a number of people make that specific concern, to me. But within this package of trusts is a gift trust, meaning that you can give pre-RV currencies to family and friends. By so doing, you avoid the federal gift tax. But this sub-trust allows you to have complete control of the post-RV proceeds. So now you're free to give currencies to anyone that you wish without any concern that for whatever reason they're going to be unable to manage that amount. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow you to avoid the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. By avoiding probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they stand to inherit. In addition, the transfer is immediate. It's not subject to the vicissitudes of probate itself. Second, the trust will allow you to avoid the federal estate tax. The federal estate tax can be as much as 65% of your estate, in excess of $12 million. So not only will your assets be immediately transferred to heirs, not only will it be done completely privately, but they will inherit 100 cents on the dollar and face no federal estate tax. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, the trust will allow you to avoid something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Let's say you have 10 million dinar. You paid $10,000 for it. You transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $1. So now you have $10 million in your trust. Can you be sued for $10 million? No. You can only be sued for $10,000. Why? Because that's all the currency was worth when you transferred it out of title to the trust. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a strategy called segregation of assets. You place each individual asset in a separate subtrust to be managed by the master trust, the trust which you assign the currencies to pre-RV. Now, how does this protect you? Well, as an example, if you're in a car accident and the car accident was your fault, the only thing involved would be you and the car. Well, remember, you don't own anything. So the owners would be left to sue the owner of the car. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely the car and the car insurance policy. So in that scenario, the only thing that the plaintiffs would ever be entitled to would be the car or the value of the car and whatever the maximum available under the insurance company. All of your other assets are in separate legal trusts, which under the law are separate legal entities having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident in question. Therefore, the plaintiff would have no standing. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your asset protection trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies, and mercifully, time is running short. Now, our trust package is a package of initially 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your currencies pre-RV and then financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift sub-trust if you wish to give currencies to family and friends and manage the post-RV proceeds, but which sub-trust can be converted to a standard sub-trust along with 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost from $6,000 to $10,000. But by mass marketing this trust to denarians, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front. We'll discount the price further to $2,500. We do have a deferred payment arrangement for those that can't afford to pay the upfront $2,500. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which somewhat offset our out-of-pocket cost just to produce and deliver your trust to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the Iraqi dinar revalues globally, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. So with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting your trust enforced and your affairs in order pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust enforced for all of the reasons I've discussed here. Now, one other thing I did want to mention, and that is you need to understand as a person who has now acquired a substantial amount of wealth, that under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death, and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth, courtesy of the information age, believe it or not, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. And once you've acquired a substantial amount of wealth, you are a target. So the only way to manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you anticipate a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. I got through that fairly quickly. I think I'm going to go ahead and go to some Q&A here, although I cannot stay on the line too long, but I'm going to open up. Okay, and while I'm waiting for any potential questions, if the things we discussed are of interest, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but again, you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package, contact us if you have any questions. If you decide to proceed, again, everything you need is included within the package in order to submit your application for the trust. You can make that request by contacting us either by email or phone. Our phone number is 307-274-4122. That's 307-274-4122. Or you can email us. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimited, LLC @gmail.com. That's trusts with an S, unlimited, LLC @gmail.com. Okay, our first caller here is area code 813. That's 813. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. How you doing?
I've actually been better, but I'm hanging in there.
Okay. I have a tax question. I know that there's it's kind of up in the air whether the tax is going to be capital gains or ordinary income, and there's no way to find out until it actually happens, and we can get an opinion. On your website,
right.
You got a tax memo that says that there is no tax until you cash in your dinar. This is from Attorney Bly. It says, does the mere holding of dinars without cashing after revaluation impose a tax liability on the holder? Answer, no. Now, you've said that when the RV happens, that is the taxable event. Attorney Bly
right.
says the taxable event is when you cash them in. Which should we go with?
Attorney Bly should have made a correction on that, because 988E2 of the internal, and we've been debating this for years, whether it's ordinary income or whether it's cap gain, and we both have cited sections of the code. We've gone to an attorney who recently sent us information saying that the way he reads 988E2, if the gain, the last sentence of 988E2 says, if the gain that you would realize from the exchange exceeds $200, you must pay the tax. So, unfortunately, that should have been taken down. I'm making a note of that, and I will call Robert right after this call. And my position, he's the attorney, he's the lead guy, so I'm going to say, unless you can make a really good argument as to why you think that the tax is not due, we have to take it down, because it's better to err on the side of saying the tax is due than saying it's not due when it is. That's why I always say we have to assume they're going to call it ordinary income, even though I feel we can argue for cap gain. Section 525 of the Internal Revenue Code refers to the profit from the exchange as cap gain, but that's not the same thing as the code. So I appreciate you pointing that out, and I will talk to him about that. It's going to be his call to make, but my argument is I'd rather say there's a tax and there's not a tax than to say there's not a tax and there turns out to be a tax, because that's when people get hurt.
My only thought on that is to do it the way you have said is to pay tax on an unrealized gain, which is a very hot topic politically right now that no one thinks will ever happen. Because if the dinar revalues and the taxes due, we're going to go ahead and make the exchange to generate the money to pay the tax. Otherwise, we're paying tax on an unrealized gain.
Yeah, but the unrealized gain they're referring to is a capital gain. If they call this ordinary income, what they're saying is when the currency revalues, that's not a capital asset. That's money, and that's what the money is worth. And so you owe the tax on the amount of money you now have.
Okay.
It's a weird animal. It just is. What have there been? Maybe a dozen revaluations, substantial revaluations in 100 years. There'll never be anything like this again, because remember what happened. The Iraqi dinar was sanctioned. It went from 322 to basically virtually zero. Then during the period of time that they are basically getting Iraq back online, we've had Basel compliance. So we are backing currencies and valuing currencies based on the known natural resources of each given country. We're now at Basel IV. So here we have Iraq, whose currency is worth next to nothing, courtesy of the actions of Saddam Hussein. It's now going to revalue at a Basel IV compliant rate, and Iraq per square mile is arguably the richest country in the world. So it's going to go from zero to maybe north of $4 almost overnight. That's just unprecedented. So that coupled with confusion about the taxes, so I will call Bob and we will discuss what he wants to do about that. But I appreciate you pointing that out.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Sorry to hear about your friend who died on 9/11.
Yeah, thanks very much. I appreciate it. Our next caller is area code 509. That's 509. Go ahead.
Well, hello there, Jim, this is Art Taylor. And,
yes, sir.
You've been a great time listening to you. You haven't had an opportunity until now to talk to you. But I do have a question in regards to the gift subtrust. We've established that. We've established the EIN. We've also have a LLC with a checking account. Can we put that LLC with the checking account into that associated gift subtrust and utilize it in the manner?
You could create a subtrust for that, but you couldn't put it in the gift subtrust. The gift subtrust is very narrowly focused on one thing: gifting currencies to family and friends.
Okay.
And then establishing accounts. So basically what would happen is you have 10 million dinar. You go to the bank, you get $1 for it. You now have $10 million in your master trust bank account. You have 3 individuals in the gift subtrust, and you gifted each one of them 100,000 dinars. So now each account is going to have $100,000 in it. You'll transfer the money over to that account. You will then do whatever you want with that money to manage it for their benefit. You might make distributions if they want to buy a car or a home. You might invest the money in the mutual funds or something for them. You might give them a quarterly distribution. You'll determine how you want to distribute the money based on those individuals themselves. But the gift subtrust has that very narrow purpose, and you would create a subtrust for the LLC.
And this would be after you create the a gift subtrust for the LLC after the dinar exchange?
You might be able to assign the LLC to the master trust, but we don't want to assign anything to the trust or create a subtrust pre-RV because the banks will want to see all of that. That's why we want a clean trust. You've assigned the currencies to the master trust. You've done nothing else, so there's nothing to give the IRS. Even if you create the gift subtrust, they don't need to see that because there's nothing in it. It's completely unfunded. It's got nothing to do with them. So if you don't have it, text me your email when this is done. But one of the supplemental documents that we send out with the trust is the exchange protocol if you have a trust, and it explains how you go through the whole negotiation if you have a trust versus an individual without a trust, what you say, what you don't say, what you take to the bank, what you don't take to the bank. So if you don't have a copy of that exchange protocol, just text me and I will get it out to you.
Okay, good. Oh, I think I've got that. I've got a list of everything that you've ever sent.
Review that because
so
I'll walk through everything and why.
Peruse that and find it. Now, one quick question as well in reference to the gift subtrust. If within the gift subtrust you have, for example, a relative that was listed, and if that relative passes away or has passed away, does that individual's siblings?
No. You're gifting it to that person. If that person is deceased, then you just don't transfer the gift. That's a recipient, but the assumption is that the person's alive. Now, the other example is someone that's disabled or has developed dementia or something like that. Then you might have to work out an arrangement where, there's a managed account or something. Because they're still alive, you're still going to give them the money, but you may need to set up special needs trusts or something of that nature to assist them. But if the person's deceased, there's no gift.
Can you list or add the children after the death?
You can increase the list to the gift subtrust, but remember, you need to do that pre-RV because you're gifting pre-RV currencies. So okay. You can remove people from the list, you can add people to the list, but you want to do it pre-RV. Now, that doesn't mean you can't give gifts post-RV if they're not on the list, but then you've exposed yourself to the federal gift tax, so you're going to have to stay within the minimum guidelines. Okay. So try to figure out as best you can what you want to do pre-RV and get that into the gift subtrust. Okay?
Fair enough. All righty. Thank you very kindly. You have a great day and appreciate what you're doing.
Sure, Art. Take care. Bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 330. That's 330. Go ahead.
Jim, hi. I just want to say, number one, thanks for deciding to take some calls. And, yes, my condolences on your friend.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
The tragic loss for many, many people that I hope people haven't forgotten 22 years later.
Yeah, you don't forget.
Yeah. So I had two questions, but one was kind of already answered by the first caller with the taxes. So I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on that. As he was talking, I pulled up that 988E2 and was reading it, and, yeah, it's exactly what you said, that we would owe the taxes on the recognized value, that the value would be if it's over $200. So, yeah, you're right. Not too many people are aware of that. That's going to cause a lot of issues for a lot of Americans, I think.
Well, the point I wanted to make is that he was inferring that because he hadn't actually done the exchange, it was technically an unrealized cap gain. Well, first of all, it's not a cap gain. It's ordinary income. And second, it is realized. It doesn't matter if it's in U.S. dollars or any other currency. Money is money, and so it's a realized gain.
Okay. So my other question, so I've been listening to your audios for a while. I'm just going to throw this out, and you make this as short-winded as you need to. Pretend I'm a 6-year-old child. I don't really understand trusts. So the most basic trust, if I have $1 million dinar and it goes 1-to-1, so now I have $1 million US dollars or however much I have after taxes. So I have that sitting in, let's just say, a bank or savings account, and I decide to buy a car. I just pull out, $50,000 and I got to go buy a new truck. But if you put it into a trust, and then, so now that money's in a trust, it's in a protected trust, but I see a house or a car, I want to go buy it. And how do you just take your money out of that and go do what you want with it as if it was just been sitting in a savings account? What's the difference?
Okay, I'm going to get a little long-winded. Okay.
Okay.
Very generally, trusts are either revocable or they are irrevocable. A revocable trust would be a situation where you are the creator of the trust, the grantor, creator of the trust, and you're also the trustee. That means you have direct incidence and control. You have the direct ability to buy, sell, use, consume, or destroy the property within that trust. Because it's direct, you have no privacy, you have no asset protection, you have no tax benefits. When you create an irrevocable trust, and I'm doing this as simply as I can, you will name a third-party trustee. That means you do not have direct, unfettered control. You work through a trustee. Now, here's where it gets a little complicated. A lot of people that know a little bit about trusts would say, don't set up an irrevocable trust because you have no control. That argument is somewhat true if you set up something called an institutional irrevocable trust, meaning you go to a company or a bank where they are the trustee. Our trust is a self-settled irrevocable trust, meaning you establish the trust and you select the trustee. In addition, you can replace the trustee at any time and for any reason. So obviously you're going to name a trustee that's a close friend or a family member that's going to work with you. So let's use the example. You want to buy a car. You just call the trustee and say, hey, you know what? I've decided I got a wild hair and I'm going to go buy this really, a car I used to own, and I should have never sold it, a 1958 Corvette. It's a deal. It's probably worth $100,000. I can get it for $88,000. You can do that if you want, because your trustee is not a bank or a brokerage firm or someone that's concerned about their job as a trustee. You're working with a personal friend or family member that's working with you. Now, your trustee can say, I don't think that's a good idea, so I'm not going to allow you to do well, then you just replace the trustee. But you could pretty much do what you want. Now, what a lot of people do is they'll have an automatic monthly transfer from their trust to their personal bank account. So you say to your trustee, well, my bills are $8,200 a month, so I want a $10,000 transfer on the first of each month. Okay, there's your liquidity. You have the money in the bank, you have your debit card, you function as though you don't even have a trust. Or you might go to the trustee and say, I want a quarterly distribution, or you might go to the trustee and say, I'm going to purchase a home, I want to set up a closing, I'm going to need a $100,000 down payment, and, of course, that'll all be accomplished. So all of that can be done through the trust. Now, it's certainly much more cumbersome than if you didn't have a trust, but once again, without the trust, you don't have the privacy, you don't have the protection from civil litigation, and you don't have certain tax benefits that will be made available to you after the revaluation. Once you have this money, then, of course, you're going to be involved with people that sophisticated investors, sophisticated tax people, and things like that. So when you have that money, then you'll be able to very easily attract the people you need to help you invest and manage it.
Okay, that was actually pretty easily followed. Or I followed that pretty easily, so that was great. Thank you. So my question with that is, so obviously you can't name yourself the trustee, or that would kind of be cheating.
No, you can't do that. Now there is something called a non-grantor trust that cute people try to set up. It's their money, but they name someone else as the settlor or the grantor, and they name themselves as trustee on the theory that because they're the trustee, they can spend the money on themselves. Well, not only is that complicated, but the grantor or the settlor that they created fictitiously can fire them as trustee. So, people get too cute. It's very simple. In a revocable trust, you don't have the privacy or the asset protection or the tax benefits. In an irrevocable trust, you have the privacy, you have the asset protection, and you have tax advantages. But in order to have that, the trade-off is you have to name a third-party trustee. We sort of added to that the ability of you to replace the trustee. So if you have the ability to place the trustee, it's almost as though you are the trustee, because you're only going to put as trustee, an active trustee, someone that's working with you rather than working for a firm.
Right. So you can get your money. They're just kind of the door you have to walk through to get that money. Right. But with that said, and so you could fire them and say, okay, you said no to me. Okay, you're fired, and hire someone else. But can they? So if they're able to just pull that money out for you, can they just pull that money out for themselves and go spend it?
Well, theoretically they can, but remember the trust document, the checking account, the savings accounts, the investment accounts, the titles, and all the documents are in your physical possession, so they can't do anything without your knowledge and consent.
Okay, so they can't just go get the money themselves and go buy themselves a truck. They kind of would have to.
Think of the trust as a safe, and all of the things in the trust are in that safe. Now, you and the trustee have the combination to the safe, but the safe is in your home. So the only way the trustee has access to that safe is in your presence, or they break in and do something. Of course, then they go to jail. So
the short answer would be no. They can't just help themselves.
No.
Without Okay. You would so they have to okay you to get your money, but you would also have to okay them to get that money for you.
The only way a trustee should deny you a request is if you've asked them to do something that's illegal, immoral, or unethical. And they're within their rights to do that. But even if that were the case, if they did something without your knowledge and consent, they're in trouble. If you do something that's illegal, immoral, or unethical, then you're in trouble. So, the trust can't protect people from themselves, but the way it's set up is it protects everyone as long as you're doing the right thing.
Okay, but there's no way that so you're the grantor and you made someone your trustee, but there's no way that, like, even if, you love to trust people that you pick to trust, but people are people, so it's set up to where they can't just kind of, quote unquote, screw you over that.
Let's put it to you this way: it would be a lot of hard work on there. I don't see how they could do without violating the law.
Right, and then there would be
again, everything. Let's say they wanted to sell your car for what they got a drug habit, they got a gambling debt, and they want to sell one of your cars. Well, the title to the car is in your physical possession, in your home, in your safe. How's he going to do it?
So if they did that, that would pretty much be theft, basically.
I don't know how he could do it if he doesn't have the title.
Right.
He can't sell a car without the title.
Right.
Yep.
So, no, Jim, I got it. That was, I didn't understand. I listened to your audios, and I never really understood it. And I was like, I got it. And I called, and you explained it. That is so easily absorbed. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and give your office a call.
Thanks very much. Well, I'll be looking for. As a matter of fact, hold on a sec. I'm going to write your number down if I can find a damn pen here. Let's see. Hold on. I'm not. Just give me 1 second. I'm writing it on a napkin. I happen to be home today, and I'm having work done on the house, and the guys are out there with hammers and drills, and I told them to please be quiet till I'm off of this call.
You'll say that. Like, I've heard you say that, like, stuff like that in other audios. We can't hear anything. I never hear anything.
Well, they're not working right. They're not working right now. As a matter of fact, I'm looking out the window, and they're having lunch.
You told them to take a break.
Yeah. I'm sorry. What was your first name again?
Eric, E-R-I-C.
Yeah. Eric. Okay. Because it said Linda on here.
Well, that's my significant phone. We're on the same plan, so I give her the money, and she buys the phones.
All right. My wife did the same thing, and then she bought them for all our grandkids.
Yeah.
She's killing me. Oh, that's all right. Well, listen, enjoyed talking with you, and we'll talk after this call, okay, Eric?
All right, Jim, thank you so much.
Sure. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, our next caller is area code 615. That's 615. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. Yes, just a quick question. Is it still on the drawing board that somewhere on the planet we're going to all get together with some subject matter experts, including yourself, and kick around where we go from here after the reevaluation?
Okay, that's in the planning only because all of these new ridiculous rules, because we were going to do it at Disney, and when that kind of fell through because of all their nonsensical rules, which may or may not still be enforced, we decided we were going to probably do an in-office DVD. That's where we are right now. But when the dinar reinstitutes, we will make a final decision about how it's going to be done, and that'll be made available to everyone.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sure, certainly. Bye-bye now. And our next caller is area code 281. That's 281. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Robert from Houston, Texas. And
yes,
condolences to your friend, and thank you so much for all that you do. Listen, I've been with you since 2018. And when we initially got our trust documents, we signed everything and had the trustees sign everything, and we even got a notary public to document it and whatnot. But because it was dated back then, do we need to, is that still good when we go into the bank to exchange? Say if we go next week or whenever we go and exchange, is all the paperwork still good even though we signed it years ago?
It's utterly irrelevant. The only thing that's important is that the dates in the document predate the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. It doesn't matter, if it was, 1901. None of that. It doesn't matter. So you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so very, very much, sir. And I get off and look forward to the next call.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Well, that was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, thanks so much for listening to the call. It's been a rough day here. We'll be back next week. Certainly if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to schedule an emergency conference call. and get that out in the email form. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Have a great week. Bye-bye now.